The film you're about to see is a tale Gary told to me when I first met him, which was a few months ago because I just moved to Tasmania, and we met in Stropodictomies, which is a gay bar, and Gary's an active gay in Tasmania. You might not know. It's nothing to be ashamed of. Right, so we met at Stropodictomies, and he told me about this tale that when he sailed from Sydney to Hobart, which I found very, very interesting. And don't judge him. That's all I'm saying. Don't judge him. Please watch the film.
In 1998, I decided it was time for a yacht. I'd been sailing with a couple of mates on the Derwent River, and I decided, well, why not get my own? I didn't know how to sail, but I enjoyed the experience with these fellows. So with that thought in the back of my mind, I went looking for one and found one in Sydney. And I'm thinking, well, I've got to get this thing home. So I employed a local crew who they flew up to Sydney with me, and we prepared the yacht in Middle Harbour in Sydney. I'd actually purchased the yacht at Palm Beach, and on the way down from Palm Beach to Sydney I was violently ill, and I thought, well, this is maybe not my thing, but anyway, let's give it a go. So we prepared the yacht, and it was just after the 1998 race of the Sydney to Hobart, and the 6 people had actually died on that particular sailing. Huge seas, and we left Sydney Harbour in ginormous seas, but a nice day, and the actual breeze was a beautiful day, and they put the spinnaker up and away we sailed. Little did I know that that little trip was going to take me 3 weeks to get home. The very first night at sea, we had a problem with the engine, and the result of that was we lost all electrical power. And at about 4 o'clock in the morning, we're in these big following seas, and I thought, what's that? Is that the moon out there? No, the moon wouldn't be coming up from the north. What is that? It looks like a boat. Oh, sure enough, it was a cruise liner coming straight at us with no electrical power on board, no lights, no radio, no nothing. We were 40 kilometres out to sea, and this boat is coming straight at us doing 30 knots, and we're doing 3 to 4. The boat, and they passed us within a couple of 100 yards, which probably is a fair distance in the overall scheme of things, but when you're out in the ocean at 40 k's out and they're coming straight at you, it was a horrendous experience. But anyway, we survived that particular night, and the following day the MacGyver fellow that was on board got the engine going again, and we proceeded to keep on coming down to Tasmania. We got as far as Eden the following day, which was a pretty good effort, and that night a huge storm came in again, which didn't do much for the swell out there. But we sat around in Eden for a couple of days, and we plotted our course down to Tasmania and thought, well, let's go down to Gaybo Island, which is off the bottom end of the mainland, which we did. We went down there with all our provisions on board, and we started going out into the Bass Strait, and what happens? The storm got worse and worse and worse, and being prudent sailors that we were, not including me because I didn't know how to, we turned back and we went back to Gaybo Island again, where we sat out for a week waiting for the weather to improve. Well, the guys on board were getting a bit fidgety by this particular stage, and they're thinking, well, Gary, we've got to get back to Hobart. And I had to kind of point out to them that this wasn't going to happen, that I'd employed these fellows to complete the journey. And I had to really, really convince them in that trip to stay on board. So they said, yeah, we looked at a window of opportunity and looked like the following day was going to be the day. So we provisioned up the boat again and headed out to sea again, another 6 hours down to Gaybo Island. Got out into Bass Strait. What happens? A huge southerly comes up, and we're going, oh no, what's happening? So we went and sheltered behind Gaybo Island again. And we were only there for 24 hours, and I was on watch at 4 o'clock in the morning, and obviously to my knowledge, not to my knowledge, these guys were downstairs preparing the mutiny of me and the boat. So I went to bed at 4 o'clock in the morning after doing my watch, and next thing you know I heard the engine going. I thought, you beauty, we're on our way. We've finally decided to go. So I go to sleep, and the next thing I know I wake up and it's 11 o'clock in the morning, and there's the mainland of Australia off on the port side, and I'm going, what? Where are we going? We're going north. I get up on deck. What's going on? We're getting off. What? You can't do that to me. Yes, we can. We've got to get back to Hobart. So I called them for everything. You know, I wasn't a happy chappy. There was me with my boat, not able to, didn't know the first thing about sailing, and they'd got off. They decided to get off in Eden and leave me to it. As I found out later, these fellows had never ever been across Bass Strait before. They'd done a number of trips, and on each occasion had actually got off in Eden, so that none of them had been across Bass Strait. So I got back to Eden with these fellows, and I was feeling pretty cranky, to be quite truthful. Didn't know what I was going to do, and so I walked around the marina thinking, what am I going to do? And I called into a couple of guys who were actually working on a boat there that had actually been dismasted in the '98 race, a boat called Salandra, which was from Hobart. And I went up to them. I said, how are you getting across Bass Strait? And they said, we're going to be towed across. And I said, towed? Oh, really? Oh, that's not a bad idea. Maybe there's someone who could tow me across Bass Strait tonight. Had this in my mind that I'd get towed across, and then I would sail somehow. I was going to sail down to St Helens and pick up another crew from there, and then sail it from St Helens down to Hobart. That was my stupid plan, and I really didn't know anything else what I could do. So I'm walking around, and I found a fellow, and I said, are you going across Bass Strait tonight? He said, yes, I am. I said, well, how much would it cost you to tow me across? And he says, $800. And I said, done. So he said, well, you go and buy the rope, which was another couple $100. And so I bought this long, thick rope that we needed to tow me. And so I got the boat together, and I was walking around, and there was a guy on another boat. There was 4 of them on his boat and 1 on me. And I said, would you like to come with me on my boat tonight? Because he was on the other boat getting towed. And he said, yes, I'll come with you. I said, oh, terrific. All right, that would be great. So Matt and I got towed out to sea that night behind this big fishing boat, and we went to sleep on board, and we woke up in mid-morning, and we were out in the middle of absolute nowhere. There was no land in any direction. Big seas, and the dolphins are up behind us, and if you had aerials on the back of the actual boat, you could see these, the waves are up higher than the actual aerial. That's how big the seas were out there, still from the rejects from the '98 race, really. 8 metre seas is the actual, I found out later that we were actually in. So we were going along quite nicely, and at about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, the skipper of the boat comes over the radio, and he says, Gary, he said, I'm going to go down the west coast of Flinders Island. He said, I think you should get off here. And I'm looking around, and as I say, there was no land in any direction, and I'm going, I want my mummy. What do I do here? Anyway, he let me go, and I said to Matt, well, you go below and set the GPS for Babel Island, which was a little island off the northeast tip of Flinders. And I said, oh, I'll steer. And he said, I don't know how to set the GPS. And I said, well, nor do I. So there we were out in the middle of nowhere, and I thought, oh, well, we've got a compass on board. I'll just steer south. So I decided to steer south. I figured, well, Tasmania's down there somewhere. It'll come up on the map somewhere eventually. And luck happened at about 7 o'clock that night. It was still daylight, and just on the horizon was a bit of land. We thought, yeah, beauty, and it turned out to be the northern tip of Flinders Island. Well, because we're only doing 3 or 4 knots, it still took us many, many hours to get to that particular destination. And it was a bit after midnight that we saw this little light in the distance, and we thought, what's that? Oh, that would be Cat Island, which was a light off the end of Babel Island. So we headed for that particular light. The trouble was that little light was probably as big as a torchlight, and we thought that light was 3 to 4 kilometres away. As it turned out to be, it was probably about 50 to 100 feet away. And we we missed these rocks. It just all of a sudden it went from there to there, this light, and we went, whoa, and let's get out of here. And we could actually see the pole that this actual little light was on. It was like the stand that I'm looking at here. And it was absolutely amazingly how close we had come to going up on the rocks. Well, we gave it a wide berth, and anyway, ended up pulling up for the night underneath the lee of Babel Island for the night. Woke up the following morning, beautiful calm day, and I left Matt below to go to sleep, and I put the automatic helm on, and I sat up the front, and the dolphins were going along beside us. It was beautiful. In the distance I thought, what's that out there? Oh, it looks like surf. We're a couple of miles out to sea. No, that wouldn't be surf. Oh, well, anyway, I'll give it a wide berth just to make sure that we don't get anywhere near that. So I gave it a wide berth, and in the process of giving it a wide berth, I hear the alarms go off. I go, beep, 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 what's that? Look over the side. Oh, it's the bottom. We're on this reef called the Van der Shoal Reef or something or other, whatever it's called. And there we were in like knee-deep water, 3 k's out to sea, with a surf just coming over in the probably a couple of 100 yards away from us, and there was swell picking up all around us. And I'm going, oh, let's get out of here. So we turned back and got back out of there again. So luckily we avoided that. But had it not been calm conditions, I would never have known that surf was even there. It just would have been disguised by the rest of the waves, and I don't know what we would have done. We would have gone straight over it. Neither of us knew how to read maps. We had no knowledge of maps or anything like that, didn't know. And so, you know, you could have put the map in front of us and I wouldn't have known that that reef was there. I just wouldn't have had a clue on our position. So we continued on down past Clark Island and all these islands down off the east coast of Flinders. And the next thing we struck was sea fog. And I didn't know if there was land in front of me. I had no idea. So I got on the radio and I called up Tamer Radio, which is out of Launceston, and I said, this is Cavalier Lady calling, Tamer Radio. Could you give me an idea where I am? They must have thought, what have we got here? There we were, cruising down. I said, all I can tell you is the coordinates of my GPS, and the GPS says that I'm here. Where am I, please? And they just said, keep coming, Cavalier Lady, keep coming. So we did. And so we got through the sea fog and discovered that we still had another couple of nautical miles to go before we hit the northern tip of Tasmania. And just at that particular point, a huge storm blew up. And we were a nautical mile out of the lee of Eddiston Lighthouse, and got on the engine. We started up the engine and had that going absolutely flat out, and it took us 1 hour to get that 1 nautical mile because of this huge southerly that had blown up. And so we got into the lee of the Eddiston Lighthouse Point, but there was a northeasterly swell with a big southerly breeze, and so we were going up and down, and we just didn't care. We'd had enough by this stage. We just anchored for the night in these terrible conditions. Woke up the following day and took off early in the morning, and Matt knew how to put up the spinnaker. And with that, we put the spinnaker up just on the other side of, because the breeze had swung during the night, and we put the spinnaker up, and we were under spinnaker all the way from Eddiston Lighthouse right down to Shooten Island. So that was the full day sailing, and we pulled it down at about 8 o'clock that night and got into the Darlington harbour of Maria Island. Well, we had another night there, and the following day we were able to get from Maria Island back to home. And all that time, was basically 3 weeks of getting home. But even at that particular point, I still did not know how to sail.